Welcome. This is Paul Carr. I hope you enjoyed Season 1 of the Wow Signal podcast. This mini episode during our hiatus is to let you know what we are planning for Season 2 and to introduce our new team who will be adding their own perspectives, insights, and ideas into the mix. Season 1 was a one-man show, but my hope is that the new team will not only allow us to publish more episodes more frequently, but also higher quality material with a wide range of fascinating guests, all weighing in on the same key questions we raised in Season 1. Where are we going? Are we alone? Has someone else already been down the same path humanity is on now? How can we know? Most important, how can we replace these naive questions with better ones? As we're planning it now, Season 2 will be about 16 episodes, each one focused on a single topic or a group of closely related topics, although each episode may have one or more features that take us off on an interesting tangent. We are not going to announce any guests yet until the interviews are in the can, but we have several people targeted. I think I am going to reluctantly retire the podcast seal of approval feature in order to make way for new features the team is developing that will be more on topic. However, I am thinking of adding a feature in which each person on the team, maybe a guest listener as well, gets to weigh in with a quick recommendation, which may include a podcast or two. As always, listener feedback is important and is always taken into consideration. Please comment on the blog at wowsignalpodcast.com or join the Wow Signal Listeners community on Google+. I am also on Twitter at Paul D. Carr, and I will take emails at wowsignalpodcast@gmail.com. Now, I'd like to introduce the new Wow Signal podcast team. From Key West, Florida, we have Mike Mongo. Mike, tell us a little about yourself.
Greetings and salutations. I'm glad to be here, Paul. Thank you. Looking forward to this upcoming season. And I am the Chief Culture and Messaging Officer at Icarus Interstellar. And I landed on the Wow Signal podcast just in doing regular research on space-related topics this past year. And I was surprised about the quality of the thinking and the rational approach to unusual subjects like SETI and SETA. And I just started following the podcast, and then I got an invite to join, and here I am.
And from Boise, Idaho, Jude Hollingsworth. Jude, say hello.
Hi, everyone. The last 26 years I've spent raising two daughters, and the majority of those years I've worked as a substitute teacher here in the same school district that I attended. Taught K through 12 and have enjoyed that a great deal, and was thrilled to be invited to help put Season 2 together. And what I hope to bring to the podcast is the point of view that some of our new listeners may have. And that is perhaps not so knowledgeable on some of the topics, but still very interested. And I want to encourage the new listeners to comment often and to ask the questions that, they all have. I think that's the best way to learn, is just to keep asking questions. And I think these four guys this year on this podcast are going to be the most excellent people to ask questions to. I'm really excited to be a part of it this year.
And Jim Cavera.
So my name is Jim Cavera. I'm from San Diego, California. I am a physicist and engineer. I have done research into various topics of advanced space propulsion, delivered papers, that kind of thing. My only real talent in life is being able to explain in pretty simple terms almost any point of modern aerospace engineering, and so that's what I hope to bring.
Okay. And now from Arroyo Grande, California, we have Ron K. Jeffries.
Hi, Paul. This is Ron Jeffries. Thank you for inviting me to participate. This is not an area that I have any subject matter expertise in, but I'm deeply interested in science and look forward to learning a lot from our guests. I'm a writer. I've done a lot of things in my life, but I'm primarily a writer, and so researching episodes and helping the rest of you out is my goal, and I'm also going to be learning about podcasting. This is all new to me. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Ron. Well, let's talk about Season 2. Now, we have a couple of guys who are deeply involved in space and aerospace and science, and we have a couple of people who represent more the listener side, which is great. I think that's a good mix. So let's talk about some of the topics and guests and features that you have in mind for this Season 2 that's coming up in the next 2 or 3 months.
Jim Cavera here. I've been thinking a lot about the advanced space propulsion. That's kind of my purview. And my background is obviously in advanced space propulsion. I've done some work in dense plasma focus fusion, that sort of thing. And I have a lot of contacts in the aerospace industry because I serve on the AIAA Nuclear and Future Flight Propulsion Committee. And so if you are interested in doing an episode on warp drive, for instance, I have a number of people in mind that could handle that quite nicely. Same with reactionless propulsion, that sort of thing. Yeah.
In fact, that I could see doing an episode or two on future propulsion just by itself. In Season 1, interviewed Duncan Forgan.
Yes.
On how he could exploit flybys to go faster in interstellar travel, but he didn't really specify a propulsion method. He assumed we could go as fast as Voyager, and then did some more analysis based on that.
Well, of course, that's a safe assumption for now, but, I was at the 100-Year Starship Conference and heard a lot of really fascinating ideas as to how to go much quicker.
Now, one thing I'd like to do is if you're at a conference, take a little portable recorder with you and talk to as many people as you can, even if you just get 3 minutes with them. That sort of thing can be really, really, really helpful. And even if the audio quality is not awesome, it's still better than the content's what's really important.
Like I was just at the SEDS Space Vision Conference, and I spent too much time with quality people that I should have had at least a 3-minute bite. And I was wondering, Jim, do you know Harold Sonny White?
Oh yes, absolutely.
He and I are good friends.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I had a nice long conversation with him, not at this previous 100-Year Starship, but at the 2012.
I was at the 2012.
So did
you present it to the 2012?
I did, yeah. I presented on fusion drives for advanced space propulsion. I had the unenviable position of following Sonny White's paper. So
right on.
Certainly one of the threads is not only how could humans move out into space more efficiently, but how could somebody else do it? And have they done it? So there's both a future engineering side to that, and there's a more speculative side. Could somebody else have exploited this technology, and how far could they push it?
I got a question.
Okay.
Be surprised, right? So, Jude, is Jude there?
Yes.
A lot of this has to do with SETI, and do we use the term UFO in our dialogues here?
You can use the term UFO if you define what you mean by it.
Okay, so just some unexplained phenomenon that's in the air that's related, that people that we can take to be, we wonder what it is about, and it may interaction with extraterrestrial or off planet or the like, that kind of thing. So maybe just the traditional vantage point. The thing I like about the Wow Signal podcast is the element of skepticism. At the Starship Century Conference at University of San Diego, I was having the most brilliant conversation with someone about Arthur C. Clarke's work. And it's funny, you'll get sucked into a conversation with a person that is seemingly just like you, and then suddenly they'll let you know that the aliens are amongst us, and then and then the conversation you have to sort of maintain your coolness and.
Well, yeah, we're going to take a skeptical attitude, but not a closed-minded attitude. I mean, I've encountered a lot of people like that, so I know what you're talking about.
So I was wondering, Jude, what's your experience? What's your background with the subject matter? What is your interest?
Yeah, Mike, I guess you'd say that I'm more on the believer's side of the fence than on the non-believer's side of the fence. There are a few cases that interest me.
Okay, that's cool. I myself have had, when I was younger, I had what people would call a UFO experience, and I am not a believer. So I've had this amazing experience, and I'm just like, okay, I don't know what that was. That was amazing. So, I think it could go either way. And what about Ron?
I'm sort of interested in everything, and I do not have an abiding long-term interest in this area. It's one of many that are sort of interesting. I'm sort of interested in the propulsion stuff, and the search for exoplanets seems interesting. But I really come to this as an amateur. I love everything to do with science and read widely and love talking with smart people. But in terms of if the thrust or question is what do I think about unexplained phenomena, I don't think about it very much.
No, we did in season 1. We did a couple of UFO episodes, and I think we're not going to do any more directly addressing that topic. One was an interview with a skeptic, and one was an interview with a fairly skeptical UFO investigator with whom I've been associated. I think that that's probably a different audience, and so I'm helping a different group get a UFO podcast going that I will contribute a 5-minute discussion of science to each episode. So I'm quite happy to let that go off in its own direction. Now we aren't going to stop asking questions about aliens. We're just going to say that maybe the best way to answer those questions is through science, through understanding the universe better and understanding technology better and understanding our own selves better rather than investigating UFOs. I'm placing some small bets on the other side too, but essentially what I've learned from looking into the topic is that it's a very, very difficult rat's nest of things to untangle. There's a lot of mythology, a lot of folklore. If we stick to the science side, we can avoid that whole briar patch. So things like Bracewell probes, for example, they're not strictly speaking UFOs. I mean, we would expect Bracewell probes to be not entering our atmosphere or flying around and shining lights on us, but rather to be sort of quietly sitting back and observing, and perhaps unobservable to us. So it's a really, that topic fascinates me, and I want to go into that more depth, and in particular how we can mine existing astronomy data to perhaps look for them. But the topic of UFOs opens up a cultural, you're walking through a cultural minefield when you start talking about that.
I mean, it's true, because I mean, not only like I mentioned that a really cool experience I had when I was a kid, but then also there's and then I referenced the people that come up to you and talk to you at wherever and come out, and that happens because I don't know if Jim has the same experience, but because I'm a space professional, it happens pretty frequently that someone, even a close friend, will come out and say, I've had this experience and I never told anybody about it. And it's a responsibility. I mean, I want to make sure that people aren't afraid of whatever's going on in their life, regardless what it is.
Oh, as soon as people find out that I'm a scientist, I get all sorts of questions, all sorts of anecdotes that, it's, I guess, an occupational hazard in a sense.
Well, if you have anybody, by the way, that wants to talk about UFOs, I can point them to the right people.
Well, Paul, what else do we get? I mean, the one of the big things that drew me to this podcast was the name. I mean, the name is beautiful, the Wow Signal Podcast. I mean, it does what it says on the package. You are pointing out something that I feel a little guilty about. In season 1, we did not actually do an episode about the actual Wow Signal, and we need to do that. It's definitely on my list. I think that most of the people associated with it are still alive. Mm-hmm. Yes, Ron, maybe you could take that on. That would be.
Possibly. Is the current scientific viewpoint that was an anomaly?
The current scientific viewpoint is that we have no idea what it was. There was good scientific work done on that signal to rule out all the obvious explanations, and there's still no known explanation. I think we owe our listeners a good backgrounder on that, and if we can find somebody who's an authority, let's get. Okay,
I'm looking up as we talk. I googled Jerry Ehrman, who was Ehrman, who was the and it says he's still around. He was the astronomer who detected the signal. I mean, I'm not seeing any notices of his passing. and people speak of them in the present tense rather than the past.
Well, let's find out.
So what else do we get to look at? What other things?
Paul, let me ask a question. I don't know whether it's close enough to your focus. What about work on whether there are life forms whether life starting on Earth may have been influenced by something coming in from an asteroid or something? I don't even know what that area is called. But
well, actually, I did ask David Grinspoon about that a little bit. We talked about how life may have originated on Mars or Venus first, and he's a Venus expert, so he's got some views on how Venus may have once been habitable. We just don't know, but it is possible that life did not originate on Earth, but originated somewhere else and came over here from one of those planets, or that it rained down on all three planets, terrestrial planets, and Earth was the only environment that stayed habitable. So that's the only place we find it now.
Does anybody know a credible scientist who's doing serious work in that area? I'm an adventure here. I don't know.
Well, directly in that area, there's certainly a lot of people studying how well microbial life can survive in space, but I'm drawing a blank on a name right now. That is certainly an area that I think is very well on topic. Astrobiology is definitely an important thread for the podcast. And I didn't, as you know, I interviewed David Grinspoon, who's an astrobiologist. We're definitely going to interview Stephen Dick, who is taking over David Grinspoon's chair at the Library of Congress. When I say definitely, I mean I haven't scheduled that interview yet, but he's near the top of my list for season 2.
Did anyone go to the DARPA's first 100-year Starship in 2011? Jim, were you there?
I did not. No, 2012 was my first.
Okay, so in 2011 that was the opener, and they had Douglas Trumbull. He's the special effects guy for 2001 and Close Encounters, and just a legend, and I think he is in his 80s. And so it's a room full, maybe 1,000 preeminent science thinkers on the planet, and everyone's just going with the flow, listening to the conversations. And when you're listening to these presentations, you sort of get into a state of mind, like just very relaxed, very receptive. And out of nowhere, Douglas Trumbull says that aliens have visited us and they live amongst us. So everybody's mind is just tuned to being open and receptive to what's going on, and all of a sudden this little current of electricity gets that like zaps everybody in the whole room. It jumped.
I can see if you live in Hollywood how you might believe that.
Yeah. You see them on Hollywood Boulevard all the time. Why not?
Well, I mean, logically it's not impossible. I just don't know where the evidence is.
Right.
That's something a wall you keep hitting. Okay, that sounds really interesting. Where's the evidence?
A wall. The walls I keep hitting. Walls I keep hitting is anytime anybody discusses FTL or faster than light, the skepticism. There's a little joke that there's a skepticism. Anytime he talks about FTL, and when you mention it inside a public setting, the room feels like it's shifting, and that's because everyone's eyes are rolling to the side.
Right.
And it's because a lot of people that we see it in movies and we see it on television. They say, let's go to planet Zaron, and they're instantly there, and it's a convenient plot device. But nonetheless, it's implausible. But nonetheless, we should be pursuing the idea of not necessarily moving faster than light, but about a method of transportation or something, an exchange that enables us to move from one point to the other, because otherwise we're sort of stuck here in the solar system.
We should definitely do an episode on faster than light. Is it possible? And if so, what are the leading candidates for making that happen? I think what Jeffrey Landis told me, which made a lot of sense, was that if it was easy to travel faster than light, we'd have tons of evidence of that. Because now I'm not sure I completely agree with that, but still, it's kind of hard to imagine how you wouldn't have all kinds of evidence of starships floating around our solar system, because we'd probably be a tourist attraction. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of you can.
The question isn't, is it possible? I mean, is it easy? Is it possible?
Yes.
Right.
It may be damn difficult, but possible. I'm skeptical.
It may be that civilizations that get advanced enough to do it very rarely survive long enough to get that advanced. So
Yeah, all of the above, absolutely.
the last term in the Drake equation is something that's another thing I'd like to take on is the L, the length of the survivals of civilizations. And one guest, I might have David Grinspoon back for that because he's writing a book on that very subject.
Is he on your current list? I don't have it up.
He's not on the list yet. I'm waiting for his book to come out. He may make season 3. I don't know. But the reason he took the Library of Congress appointment is it would be an opportunity to write his book. Hopefully that book will be out in the near future. And it's about what we've learned from ourselves about how civilization takes over the planet and sets the tone for the future of the planet. And knowing him, it'll be some fairly nuanced thinking on that. I'm looking forward to that. We'll have to read the book and then talk to him about it.
Is there anybody in this group that works with kids, students, besides me?
Other than my own?
Other than your own.
Yeah, I've been a substitute teacher for 26 years, so.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, excellent.
That's good. I mean, my primary role, I am the brand carrier over at Icarus Interstellar, and Icarus Interstellar's sort of the preeminent interstellar space science advocacy group on the planet. And what I do is I carry the message out and I embody the brand, so to speak, by going and living it in front of. A lot of times I'll bring it to students. I Google as astronaut teacher. I'm a space educator, and so I get to travel around all over, not just the U.S. and encourage kids to pursue careers in astronautics. And to me, that's one of the most important things that we can do as a science person, or as any sort of educator, is to encourage kids to pursue careers that have to do with space. Because anything, particularly at the moment where we are right now, anything that you want to do within the next 10 to 15 years, you're going to be able to do as a career, as a role in space. I often tell kids that if they're in between the ages of, say, 8 and 12 right now, that by the time they're out of college in 2025, that they can work in space. And it's something, when you're telling a classroom of kids, giving them this opportunity, just opening their eyes to it, it's the best feeling, because how many of us waited to hear that when we were kids? I'm 48 right now. And that was what held my attention, what inspired me to pursue the goals that I pursued as a young student. And I didn't necessarily have a specific individual that stood in front of us and said, you can work in space. And thankfully they didn't, because it didn't work out that way, so to speak. I mean, not exactly. I work in the field, but I'm still here firmly planted on Earth. Whereas this up and coming generation is going to get to work in space. And so that's one of the things that inspires all the work that I do, and everything that all these topics that we talk about, any of my interest has derived from my interest in space as a youth.
I think that's a great topic. I'm not sure exactly where to take it, but maybe you could develop something for us on that. Maybe, do you know Mae Jemison?
Oh yeah, geez.
She would be a great person to have on, even if just for 20 minutes or so.
Well, when I work with kids, I mean, actually, when I'm working with adults, with other space professionals, when I'm in a room and I remind everyone, it's funny because you'll be at a conference or a setting or whatever, and inevitably there are some youth there. There are some people that are under the age of 18 for one reason or another. And as space professionals, we have not only the opportunity, but I say we have the obligation to introduce ourselves and say, how are you doing and what are you doing? And if they say good, then you say, what does that mean to you? You plumb them for their depths, and then and it makes the mind works, and when the mind works, then it leads to these interesting places like all the stuff that we're talking about right here, and to be able to, and I'm a podcaster. That's in today's world. That's entree to a conversation right there.
Yeah, I agree. Because I've been working on unmanned spacecraft for 31 years. Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot we can do with that. And it really fits into the thread of the future of humanity and the future in space. And there's actually one more topic I'd like to talk about, which I've asked Jude to look into. As you know, probably in last season, I spoke to Nikola Danilov about the future of humanity and what we're doing both about humans and with our technology. And there's some big questions there. I know Seth Shostak's written quite a bit about it lately, but there's two big questions. One is, how much longer are we going to live in the future? What's going to happen with our bodies? And the other question is, maybe are our bodies possibly going to be obsolete at some point? And these are kind of speculative, but we're getting to the point where we really need to start thinking about what the future of medicine and the future of technology is going to do, maybe not to our generation, but to our children or grandchildren's generation. It's getting close, and there's big questions that have to be addressed. I've asked Jude to look into the topic of longevity. What's happened with human longevity in the last century or so, and what does the future look like, and who are the big players, and maybe we can score an interview or two with someone who's in the area of longevity research. And people are talking about things like longevity escape velocity, about living to 200 or longer. I'm not an expert in that area at all. I'd like to catch up and see what the state of the art is, and actually, start a bit of a debate. Not everybody agrees with the longevity experts. So, and it just like the faster than light, I think there's a lot of debate and discussion that we could trigger and have a good rational disagreement over, is faster than light possible? We can also have a good debate and discussion, and maybe even get a panel together and have them talk about it. How long will humans live in the future? What are the options for expanding human lifetime? And also this whole transhumanism and post-human discussion that's going on. Not everybody believes it. There are a lot of skeptics, but there are also a lot of very serious people who think it's going to happen. So I think that those are good topics to delve into.
On transhumanism, I mean, Martine Rothblatt she presented at 2012, I believe. No, 2011. Which was the most recent? Yeah, 2012 100-Year Starship, and she had her talk, her presentation was picked as one of the preeminent ones of that symposium, and it was about uploading our minds into. She has a method, or excuse me, a idea of a method to upload minds for what's the word? Not legacy, but archiving, and it was very clearly elaborated upon, very clean method, very clean idea of a method, and she is a transgender person. She's a transgender woman, and yeah, and it's another terrific thing. One of the things I liked about 100-Year Starship, I mean, there's things I didn't like and things I did like, but one of the things I did like was the mix of people that were there. At a lot of these presentations, anybody you can, it's clear and oftentimes not noticed that the majority of the group are males who happen to be white, or whites who happen to be male, whichever way. But at 100-Year Starship, and I tweeted this at the time, this is way back when, that this is the most people who are female that I've ever seen that I've seen at all the space conferences I've been to cumulatively, much less any single one, and then people of color. It was amazing. That was one of the best parts about it. There were things that I would criticize as well, but that was one of the success features.
Are there conferences on the West Coast, preferably California, that a person could at least get into the hallways, even if you didn't pay for full admittance? I'm pretty good in the hallways. The
NSS's ISDC, that's in May.
Oh,
that's the International Symposium excuse me, I got confused.
Space Development Conference.
Yes, yeah. Those are like the Comic-Con of space.
That would be like another gold mine type of place. The 100-Year Starship is certainly. I'm glad that it attracts such a diverse group of thinkers. That's exactly the sort of person we're trying to get on the podcast. And we want all sides of these issues too, not just the optimists. Of course, you're going to get a lot of optimists at a 100-Year Starship conference, but
yeah, and where 100-Year Starship was when the first one, the public symposium, kicked off in 2011. And then the 2012 was pretty strong. This most recent one did not seem so strong to me, and now I don't know where the next one's going to go. I just don't know how much you can talk about interstellar space exploration on an annual basis. Well, we did at Icarus Interstellar. We did Starship Congress this past summer in Dallas, and that was the first summit of interstellar space science and science organizations. We realized immediately that there's no reason to have this thing every year. We got a lot of good information. The presentations were just of the highest scientific caliber, and the information was gathered and then has been disseminated. And now everybody goes back to their work. So one has more of a Hollywood sort of quality, and the other one, and then there's the bricks and mortar type. And this is there's parallels to that in all the different conferences and symposiums.
One area that is hot right now is asteroid mining, and we're going to do more on that. And I really would like to get Chris Lewicki on. He's the chief asteroid miner at Planetary.
Are you chasing him?
Not actively, but as soon as I am free to do more, I'm going to start doing a lot more chasing down guests.
Jude, are you familiar with Bigelow Aerospace?
I am, yes.
She is, yes.
I actually spoke with John Alexander last night about Bigelow Aerospace.
Do you know? Robert Bigelow's. I apologize for centering on this subject, but he's a big. He's a believer. So, and he's really easy to get a hold of.
And Dr. Alexander told me the opposite. He said he does not actively use a computer.
But his if you call his office, his assistant is really handy, and they make him very available.
Yeah, well, that would be good. I'd rather talk to him about his habitats and his plans for the space station. It's not clear that he's actively engaged anymore with doing any sort of paranormal research. He's more engaged. In fact, I even thought about working for him, frankly. I just don't think I want to live in Vegas. But what they're doing is very interesting and pretty innovative. And I know that they did a good job with their Dnieper payloads that they launched, the inflatable habitats to open up. And I just as soon talk to his chief engineer than him. He's a hotel magnate. I'm sure he keeps himself well informed of what his company's doing, but he's not the expert.
Okay. We have control over that. Paul, in formatting of your show, and since I'm coming to it new, do you prefer episodes that are a single interview subject, or do you like to have, perhaps 3 20-minute? Your target's about an hour, but sometimes you go 45 minutes, or just talk to me a little bit about that.
The shortest I've gone is 37 minutes, I think. Initially, when I first started, it was going to be I talk for 5 minutes, then I do an interview, then I talk for 5 more minutes, then play a song, then talk for 1 more minute, and then off, right? But as you'll notice, I got a little more sophisticated. I'd had 2 interviews per episode in a couple of the episodes. Episode 8 was 3 interviews, which were cut out. One of them was cut out of, I took the Duncan Forgan and broke it into 2 pieces, and I took the Ben Wright McGee interview and broke it into 2 pieces. The format I was thinking of is what they call a magazine format, where you have sort of a major article that is a major theme and probably one important guest. And then but you could have 2 or 3 guests. And then you have features. You might have 2 or 3 features, depending on what you've got in the can. Or you may take an interview that you did with, let's say we take an interview with Mae Jemison. Okay. And we asked her about her astronaut career. We asked her about her Starship involvement. We may ask her about public outreach and education to kids, that sort of thing. We might break that up into 3 different pieces, right? And decide, okay, well, here's 6 minutes of the Mae Jemison interview that's perfect for talking about outreach to young people. And we'll use that in that episode. And then we'll do here's another 20 minutes where we talk about the 100-year starship. And then that will get used in another episode, and so forth. And then we'll write script around that, and we can have our own opinions and our own thoughts, and you can ad-lib it or you can read it. As you probably notice, I'm more fond of reading a script than I am of ad-libbing. And we'll break that into, I think, probably about 3 or 4 major sections per episode, and then probably not going to play songs anymore. I never got any feedback of that one way or the other.
I like the idea of the music. I just didn't, I mean, like the choices, a lot of them were too abstract for me to connect with. And I'm a fan of sort of abstract music. So I just think there's stuff that's maybe more listener friendly, even if it is avant-garde, that's out there that would be, I mean, I think we could do more.
I have very poor judgment when it comes to listener friendly. In episode 4, I played a little bit of David Grinspoon's music just because I wanted people to hear the other side of David Grinspoon. But that was, and I played a lot of Jason Robinson's music because I like it, and B, because he gave me permission to use it.
To my mind, the gold standard is how some NPR programs use music effectively, just as a transition device, and they're just brilliant.
Yeah, and I use little bumpers and stingers and things like that to sort of a signal to the listener. Okay, that segment's over. This one's starting. So you give them a 10 seconds of music. They can take a breath, reorient themselves mentally to the new thing that's coming on. That is, and then there's intro music. I've been using the Luchatista's Vanished short piece from that. I'd be willing to consider new intro music, but I'd like to get something that we're settled on. I actually kind of like that piece. It has to set the right tone and mood for the podcast. So it can't be. There's a lot of things it can't be, and it's sort of like, you know it when you see it, or you know it when you hear it.
I have a couple of comments. One is in topic area. How do you feel about maybe an episode or so that focuses on sort of practical realities, policy issues? So, for example, getting deeply into space is a very expensive thing. One approach is we're going with privatized space. And this is not my area, but I just, from a distance, there's a lot of sort of pragmatics around, there's the ethereal thing that, in 100 years we're going to be living on, whatever distant object it is. And then there's getting here to there, how you finance it, how people make money on it or don't make money on it. Are you interested in any topics along those lines?
The business of and the politics of building a spacefaring civilization in the next generation or two. Absolutely.
And so maybe on Bigelow Aerospace, and I'm not familiar with them, you talked about how you'd really like to talk to the engineer, but kind of fear that founder wants to talk. Well, a way to finesse that is you both, but he doesn't get much time.
It's not that I wouldn't be happy to talk to Robert Bigelow. It's just that I'd rather talk to his chief engineer.
Well, that's what we do. I mean, but we can do both, right? And so he can have his little 10 minutes of fame, and then we get 30 minutes with the guys.
Yeah, all that is definitely fair game.
Yeah, I'm more of an up-and-coming guy as far as interviews. I am, like rock stars are great, but that's what they serve a purpose. And there's usually a lot of information about whatever that person is saying, thinking, or doing out there already. But I like to talk with the people that are not necessarily behind the scenes, but behind the scenes, and maybe behind the scenes because they are just on the rise right now. That's where that kind of thinking inspires me more than hearing the same. Like Chris Lewicki, I've heard his pitch on asteroid mining so many times now. All the information I get from Planetary Resources is sort of moot. You know what? It's funny. I mean, like we use the metaphor like a dinosaur or the way of the dinosaurs, and we don't even. I mean, it is such a battle to get our world population to realize the threat and danger of asteroids and meteorites, and I mean, all it takes is one piece of rock from the right location. Like, as I recall, that one that went over Russia was last year. We didn't see it because it was coming from the direction of the sun, which to me is, I mean.
And I think that's definitely something we need to cover. And it dovetails in nicely with the asteroid mining topic as well.
Oh yeah, I would definitely pursue that. I mean, I know a bunch of guys in that. I just had a conversation with one. I think it's just so important, and I think we haven't figured out the right way to connect the issue with the audience, like all of us as human beings. That we, like the people who understand, hey, dinosaurs were made extinct by this thing, and that thing has not gone away. That ever-present threat of rocks from the sky.
I appreciate all the really good discussion. I think we'll go around one more time. Is there anything else you want to say or recommend or talk about quickly? We'll do that. Then we'll.
Okay. Well, I'll start this off. Simply because I don't have anything really to add at this point, but I'm definitely looking forward to working with all of you later, and so we'll keep in touch via the G+ pages.
Okay, great. Jude, do you have anything you want to say? Add?
I think I'm going to learn a lot from you guys, so I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Mike, any last comments?
I'm the luckiest guy in the entire world. I am a space educator who lives in Key West, Florida, and I want everyone, if they're interested in interstellar space exploration, go to IcarusInterstellar.org. That would help out a lot. And then finally, I hate to say it, but I'm stoked to be working with this group. I feel like we're a super team of science investigators. It's a cool feeling.
Thanks, Mike. Ron, you get the last word.
I have to dispute that you're the luckiest man on Earth, because I always said that I am the luckiest man on Earth, and I'll tell you why sometime. But I'm lucky to be here, lucky to meet you guys, and I'm very excited about what we're going to be doing with the show.
Thanks for joining us on this special episode during our hiatus to meet the new team. You've heard some of our ideas, and I hope you'll share yours with us as well. Go to wowsignalpodcast.com or join our Google Plus listener community. We hope you'll join us early in 2014 for the start of Season 2. We already have one interview with an eminent scientist lined up, and we expect to have many more soon. You'll find the show notes at wowsignalpodcast.com. Music by DJ Spooky. The spoken content of this podcast is distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 license.